I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And here we go. I'm delighted to be a part of your world for the next hour. As the host of The Power of Money, I've not had a talk to my listener session in a little bit, so I thought this would be a good time to be able to do that. So many of you are home due to the pandemic. Some of you are working from home remotely and have a little bit more free time. And some of you are night birds, which is you'll be looking at YouTube, where I also broadcast, as well as our regular distribution friends throughout the United States via DATV, which is a remarkable company headquartered in Dayton, Ohio. I've had the privilege of working with these people for over 8 years. I commute up here for the shows. Why? Because this company has just been ahead of the game for a long, long time. And so I'm happy to be a part of that. Now, what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about today a subject that's kind of weighed on me heavily with all of the things that are happening with COVID, and not just COVID, with people not working, with presidential transition, with just our country's cultural expression right now. And I do say cultural expression because we are seeing things that we just never seen before. And I think it's important that we be able to talk openly about it because it's out here in front of us. So the subject today is when the rubber meets the road. And that's a term I've heard over the years relative to when party's over and here we are. So I want to talk about it from the perspective of your own personal lives as it impacts on you and your family, and see if we can't be open about it, and I can make some recommendations as a financial professional and advisor and consultant for over 40 years. Yeah, I'm 69, believe it or not, going into 70. And while I am shocked myself, I'm sure that many of you all are in the same situation, which is, what the heck happened here? And I tell people it's called living life. Living life. Learning that if you don't seize the opportunity when it presents itself, poof, it's gone. For many of us, the whole notion of child raising, child rearing, college, their families, all of this stuff is right here upon us. And so I want to throw out some things for you to think about and give it some real earnest consideration, because I have certainly given it a lot of thought. One of the things that is occurring in America, and it's happening very quickly and rapidly, is the number of people that are simply single, meaning they're divorced, they're widowed, or they've never been married. But the statistics on people that are single is pretty significant. They're saying that single people are almost 30% of the U.S. population right now, which means that if you're single, truly single, you're not alone. You've got a lot of company. Now, the other thing that I thought I would share is that the people that are single are incredibly happy. That was a statistical truth that kind of put a spin on things, which is they were not looking for a hook up. They were perfectly happy living their lives as they wanted to be and alone. I looked at statistics as it relates to multiple marriage, because apparently when single people stopped being single, they didn't stay married very long. They were divorced, particularly among females. And maybe the thought was, I don't want to do this at this point in my life. And that's to be respected. But I want you to be aware of that trend, because if this country is moving rapidly toward people that are older and single and don't plan to get married, then how you approach life and the decisions you make in that particular demographic of single are important. And let's deal with that first, talking about the rubber meets the road. When you are single and older, a couple of things need to be first on your list. And let's start with, if you're single and over the age of 60, but not 65, and you're out here, then my first concern is always going to be, do you have adequate health care? And I say this very openly because until you're 65 and are eligible for Medicare, and there are exceptions if you're under 65 and you've been disabled for 2 years, or if you have end-stage renal disease and Lou Gehrig's, those would qualify you for earlier age consideration. However, if you're just 60 and you're working every day, prayerfully you are under a health plan. And why? Because you're not eligible for anything else other than trying to get qualified under the Affordable Care Act, which has resurrected. And I encourage people that are under 65 and have decided to retire, you might want to rethink that in terms of the health care provisions and requirements. To get sick and to be older or a senior is tough. And if you don't have any form of insurance, it's expensive, very expensive. In fact, ruinous for so many people. So one of the things I share with all single people, since the subject matter of my show today is when the rubber meets the road, taking the steps to make sure you don't get flamed up, is making sure that you have adequate health insurance. If you have retired, before you retire, you check with HR and see if there's a continuation of benefits. And I didn't say COBRA. I did, oh my gosh, expensive, expensive. But see what it's going to cost you if you are going to continue under the company plan, because that will be major if you don't have any kind of coverage and you're trying to wing it on your own. Getting health insurance is worth you staying on your job. It's also worth it if you're looking for another job, because most temp agencies don't offer health benefits. Why is that so critical? Because like I said, to be older and to have a condition or an ailment, medications, etc., it can be ruinous. Okay, meaning it can just blow you out. And so it's very important from where I sit as an advisor that I ask that key question. And so many people that I talk to, and I talk to literally, I've been in practice for almost 40 years, that's a lot of people that I've talked to. And when I was younger, I didn't have the same perspective as when I was older. Because as I become older, I am much more sensitive to the realities of the physical, okay, which is your body begins to show indications of wear and tear. I don't care how wonderfully your life has been. And I have lived a very, very careful life. I mean, I'm not a vegan because I do eat wild-caught fish, But I don't fool with meat and stuff. Haven't for years. Pork is off the table, period, forever. And even still, my body does not feel like it felt when I was in my 30s. I don't bounce the same way. I need my sleep, okay, which is a part of getting older. You do need your sleep. You need at least 8 hours so that your brain can regroup and so you can wake up refreshed. Cutting your sleep short is not a good idea. Okay, that's why so many caregivers have a tough time taking care of Alzheimer patients and that, because you don't get any sleep and you find yourself transforming into a very different person. So again, as a single person moving ahead into your older years, you need to be able to deal with that. Healthcare, a must. At 65, 3 months before and including that month and 2 months after, you can always contact Social Security, let them know. They know anyway, but you have to let them know that you're not getting any coverage so that you can come up under Medicare. And do I know Medicare? Yeah, I know Medicare. I enroll people in Medicare. That's one of the things I do for seniors. And it's mandatory. It's not optional, by the way. If you don't have coverage through your job or through your wife's employer or your spouse's employer, you're going to have to do Medicare at 65. Is it worth it? Yeah, yes. 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 You paid for it. That's deducted from your paycheck. If you look in the little column under Medicare, you pay for it. So at the time you're entitled, you should take advantage of it. Don't sit on it. Please don't do that. That's not smart planning. So for singles, the most important thing is, again, making sure your health care is in place. The other thing I share with everyone that's single is, whether you believe it or not, you're going to need to get a long-term care insurance policy while you still qualify. There are lots of options that are available today with long-term care. You can get a short-term care policy that's quite affordable, but the reality is that unless you have people willing to take care of you because of your conditions, it can be a problem. It really can be a problem. So I share that with you because, excuse me, please. Thank you, Ben. I'm appreciative. The studio's a little chilly and I've got the sniffles, but bear with me while I give you this information. And again, I say today, there's 2 things that'll make you richer or poorer: information and technology. If you don't have good information, you're going to make poor decisions and it's going to erode the quality of your life. If you are a wealthy person, you can usually pay someone to give you the information so that you can make good decisions and move on. But if you are single, it's important. Oh my gosh, it's so important that you get good, solid information, financial information, to begin to address the things that you had not given any thought about whatsoever. So that's why I said and I'm going to deal with people that are not single as a part of my rubber to the, because I want to talk about the whole transition of people getting older, because it is a transition. And some of us do well and a lot of us don't. You look in the mirror and you're like, what the heck happened? And I tell people, it's called life. Okay? It's called life. Comes at you funny. You can't shake, rattle, and roll anymore. Things have changed. And you have to begin to embrace flexibility. You have to be willing to embrace the concept of let it go. You know, let go and let God. Now it really makes sense. You have to be willing to attend to your own needs first. Okay, because you got more years behind you than ahead of you. And that's a fact. It just is that way. So getting back to my conversation about being single and about the healthcare issue being your primary concern, as you look ahead, if you've not had a budget, now is the time for you to really have a key for things you don't want to be stuck with. If you're in debt, come out of debt. Pay off debt before you talk about 401k, 403b. Forget all that if you're in debt. The numbers never, ever work well. You need to budget and plan to turn the spigot off on spending and focus on, I got to get out of debt. Because as long as I'm in debt, I won't be able to pay for the things that I must pay for right now. And one of those must pay for right now, for all of you that are listening, but particularly for those of you that do not have spouses, is long-term care. And before you say, oh, I can't afford it, don't tell me that when you haven't even investigated it. Things have changed. And I'm going to tell you, the best thing you can do for yourself is to make sure that you've done for yourself. Do not look to your children, grandchildren, church, synagogue, temple. Don't look for anybody to take care of you when things go awry. And when I say awry, when your health issues are now classified as chronic. The largest number of people in facilities right now, skilled care, formerly known as nursing homes, are females. Now, arguably, the numbers are high because men don't live as long as we do. So there's a disproportionate number of women that are in facilities. But many of these women are single women, okay? And they're in these facilities because they don't have anybody to tend to them or care for them. Many of them, because they did not plan ahead or anticipate the things that happen, are on Medicaid. Medicaid is a government-backed program that is federal, state, that will pay for poor people. Indigents, they call it, but they do pay for long-term care in a skilled care facility. Under Medicaid, you're only allowed to have $2,000. That's it. You have a home, that's going to be liquidated. Asset, everything's going to be liquidated other than that $2,000 that you have. So I share with all viewers, no partiality here. You get long-term care because all that stuff has to be paid for. And either you're going to have the resources to pay for it yourself, or the government will pick up the tab. If the government picks up the tab, trust me, you won't have a dime. That's it for you. You won't have a dime. You won't have anything, that little $2,000. So I'm a strong believer in long-term care for single people, because that's where our society is moving. And as I told my children, because I have it, by the way, I told them, only a fool would look to their children and grandchildren as a venue for their care. That's not going to work. You all are scattered. Most people's children are all over the place. Some of them are living with them. How are they going to take care of you when they can't take care of themselves? That's something you have to consider in your planning profile. So I'm a big advocate of having that insurance. Price points today are so low that, and when I say low, I didn't say free. Insurance always costs. But when you consider what the prices are, if you have no coverage, you may want to think again. In most localities, those facilities can range anywhere from $6,000 a month all the way up to $14,000 a month if you have Alzheimer's. Okay? Now you say, but what if I don't have the money? Then you will go on Medicaid, and you will not have the benefit of being in the nicest, best facilities, although they're not supposed to discriminate, but come on now. If a facility has a choice between having a person that's paying them cash and having to depend on the government, they're going to go for the person that has cash. So you may find that you don't get the quality that you want. So again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is back to rubber meets the road, laying in place the things that'll work for you. The third area is making sure you do have life insurance. And before you say, but I don't even believe in life insurance. No, nobody cares what you believe in. Okay? You want to do things that say, I don't believe it, but I'm doing it. Okay? It's like I tell people with masks. I don't like masks. I'm like, yeah, but you're doing it right? Well, yeah, because I don't want to make people sick, and I don't want to be sick. Exactly. You're looking out for your own best interests. Okay? Same thing with life insurance. You buy it because you're going to die. You buy it when you're younger, if you're smart, because it provides a very convenient saving vehicle for you to use that money that's accumulated for a variety of things. It does. So, do you buy it online? Do you buy it from television? Preferably, you buy it through a licensed agent who has the ability to get this done for you affordably. And it's important that it be affordable. Do not get involved with products that you can't make the premiums. Okay? That's not wise. So I tell most single people a minimum of $25,000. Now, when I had children actively, I carried $1 million on each child and under term. And I kept a pot for myself. When they became grown, that insurance dropped off because I didn't need it anymore. So before you say, why do you need $1 million? Well, $1 million is not a lot of money. Not when it comes to raising kids. It's not. And the other thing is because my mother, who was a very alpha female woman, an accountant, said, I'm not raising your children without some money. And I told her, you're absolutely right. Because why would I want to burden you and Dad with my children and leave you no money to work with? So again, because I was a divorcee at that time, and I was not getting any financial support, things have changed a lot. And so I wanted to make sure at the very minimum that my parents had a nice pot of money to raise my children and to provide college education or some kind of trade school education and not be burdened financially. For all the many children I see today whose mothers and dads have crossed over or and the grandparents are having to raise their grandchildren. Now let me just say this, because I have 4 grandchildren, 5 now, that I love. But you know what? They're a handful. They have energy that's boundless. It's nonstop. If you don't move quickly, they're in one room. And then zoom, zoom. And you all know what I'm talking about. And then you find yourself spending because you love them. Okay? Spending for this and that, this activity, that activity. Start doing the numbers. And as they grow up, you would think the attachment was less, but the attachment actually is greater. Because now you're looking at activities, sports, and college funding. All that takes money. So when I look at grandparents having to raise their grandchildren because their sons and daughters did not act responsibly and maturely, I'm like, somebody needs to take their grown kids to the backwoods and whoop them. I mean, really, whoop them. That's what we did in Kentucky, whoop them. Because that's crazy. So I say the reason for life insurance is because, again, you don't have any expectations of anybody burying you. You're going to do that yourself, not GoFundMe. Not, oh my gosh, you know, she's gone and she doesn't have anything. Not good. Get it done, and get it done today. And if you are younger people and single because you got babies by different females, males, I hope you're listening, you make sure you get insurance on those kids. And if you can take it, get insurance on their mothers. Because the reality is, if she dies, the court is going to, in all probability, award the children to you. You have to petition the court because she probably doesn't have a guardianship agreement. But as a father, you would get them. Now, some of you are like, well, I don't want them. Well, I can't answer that. A lot of men don't step to the table. And so the children get, the grandparents step to the table, and that's how it works out. But I'll tell you right now, you're going to be sorry because those very children you did not put time in, when you get old, they're not going to put time in with you. So you'd better be a real serious candidate for long-term care insurance for yourself, okay? Because I doubt seriously if your children are going to run to take care of dad, because dad was not running to take care of them. Karma's something else, isn't it? It is. So I say again, looking at foundations with singles, you got your health insurance, primary, checking with HR or looking at affordable care, and then rolling into Medicare at 65 or earlier if you've got some other conditions. Looking at long-term care, insurance for yourself, affordably priced so that you can make the payments. Again, incredibly important. Life insurance, a no-brainer. A no-brainer. A no-brainer. Well, they're making money off of me. And everybody else is too. It's called working for a living. They pay you a wage. And anything beyond that wage goes in the form of profit. And so, yeah, they're making money off of you. But you're getting paid, so be quiet. Be happy. This is America. You don't want to work for Joe, you can work for yourself, okay? So, but those are important. The other thing, the fourth thing is making sure you have an emergency account so that you do not find yourself like so many other people have with this COVID, but they don't have any money. They don't have any savings. They don't have anything. And they are dependent upon the grace and mercy of the federal government. And I'm like, the federal government's not God, and they certainly don't adhere to grace and mercy. So something as simple and basic as having an escrow account that represents, and it takes time, but you can do it. If you're gainfully employed right now, start putting away at least enough money which will ultimately represent 1 year of savings for emergency. What's the emergency? I lost my job. What's the emergency? I got hurt on the job and I don't get any money for while I'm off after a certain number of days. Emergency. My wife died and I need to pay for the funeral because I didn't believe in life insurance. That's what emergency's for, is to cover those expenses that you had not anticipated or budgeted for. And that's essential. So those are 4 things that are musts. And I will also say if you're married, to a great extent what I've told single people applies to you as well. The benefit of having a spouse, though, is number 1, you have income support. Typically a spouse, both people are working. The days of her staying at home or him staying at home are pretty much over. And so you're working and you're pulling this thing together. So if one of you loses a job, the other one's still pulling it together. The other benefit of a spouse is if you do have a condition or a situation that results in you not having the ability to create a livelihood for yourself and your family, your spouse can be there to take care of you and attend to you. Although don't be presumptive. Because I have sat in situations where spouses, this is what happens when you've been doing this for 40 years. Jeez. You get subpoenaed and you have to talk about money and what they have and what they don't. Because the spouse does not want to be with you sick. They didn't believe in the vows. They changed their mind. And it's a sorrowful situation on both sides. I've seen men bail out with women who've been diagnosed with breast cancer. I've seen women bail out with husbands that have to have dialysis. They don't want to do that every other day. They don't want their quality of life diminished because of his kidney issues. People are all over the place, and they do all kinds of things, many things that are not honorable. But you know, who's judging but God? So they do a little bit of everything. And it doesn't feel right, and morally for many of us is repulsive, but nonetheless, they do it. And so I say all this because a spouse that loves you and is willing to be there and attend to you while you're going through difficult times is a blessing. You don't have to experience what it's like to be solo and single. Okay? The other thing about the spouse is, like it or not, it's companionship. Now, don't get me wrong. Being single, you are alone a lot. And therefore, the single life is one of adaptation. You can go out to eat with friends. You can go out by yourself. You don't have to worry about somebody else snoring in the bedroom. It's just you snoring. You don't have to worry about sharing your money or disclosing or telling or anything. It's a very independent life. And for many people, it's the only life they're going to live, because marriage is about sharing and cooperation and companionship. And not everybody is a good companion. They just aren't. And they've been pushed into situations where they don't want to be, and then here we are. So I'm sharing this back to this rubber meets the road, so that you can begin to order accordingly. Now, I'm going to share some stories that are actual stories. The names have been changed, but I'm going to share them with you so that you will have a perspective on what is going on out here. With all these people dying from COVID, I mean, we just broke the threshold with 500,000 people that are no longer here due to this horrid virus. And the thing that goes into my mind is, not only is the person gone, but if they're married, that source of income is gone, as well as how am I going to afford to bury them? Oh yeah, yeah. Nobody's doing Potter's Field, because that's for indigents, and you're not an indigent. Your husband died, your sister died, your mother. These all happen as a part of life. And the mortician is not going to do anything without payment. Now, I'm going to share this account because I've had many, many, many years of dealing with this with families. We've got to pull together. Wonderful concept, but in most cases, it's only one person who shells out money, either cash, either from pulling money out of their tax qualified plans or 401ks under hardship withdrawal. It's usually only one. Everybody else is like, oh, mea culpa, oh my God, oh my God. But there's usually only one. And that person steps up to the table and pays the tab. And the tab can be expensive. You're talking about $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 and more. So you're looking at all these people out here who are really not prepared to deal with death in real time. The rubber just met the road. Dad died, or brother died, or sister with 3 kids died. And now here the family is looking at how are we going to get through this. And I'm telling you, no perfect story, but I will say that everybody that's listening, if you hadn't thought about life insurance for yourself, oh yeah, it could happen to you too. I'm sorry, you're human. Um, you may want to consider that right now. For children, insurance coverage is so cheap, $10 a month. I mean, come on. And yes, children are dying. And yes, funerals are expensive. And yes, we need to make sure those things are attended to, because this is all about living a mature and wise life. Stuff happens, you prepare for it. If you're blessed and lucky, it won't happen to you, but because life is so unpredictable, it could very well happen to you in a blink. In a blink. I don't know about you, but I have lost many, many, many of my associates this last year. Not just from the virus. Cancer, especially pancreatic cancer with men. Why is he dying from pancreatic cancer? Because he doesn't want to get an exam. The yearly exam, he don't want, no, you're not doing that to me. And I'm like, boy, if you don't do this, something worse is going to show up. Fatalities with that type of cancer, extremely high. Okay, extremely high. So again, these are things that you want to consider, because we are now at a point of rubber meets the road. When you can put a person in a hospital and 2 weeks after their admission, they're gone. That really is rubber meets the road. And I scurried, my daughter, my oldest child, contracted COVID in Las Vegas, Nevada. And bad. I mean, really bad. I didn't think we were going to make it. She was under the care of the Veterans Administration, because she is a veteran. And it was horrible. But she pulled out of it. But during the period of her sickness, I was going in my head about, oh my gosh, I got to get out there. That's another state. I know she doesn't have a will because she doesn't believe in that. I know she doesn't have insurance, so it's going to be a check. And all these things went through my mind. And I'm sure I'm not alone when people are facing those kind of things. What if they don't pull out of this? What's going to happen? She's got a dog that's in love with her, and I'm not really ready to raise the dog. And so, bless God, she did come out of it. She still has residual, and you all need to know that there is residual with this COVID. Real. People are going to be suffering for a long, long time with this thing. No, they didn't die. Yes, it's gone, but it left a mark. So she's single. And every time I try to bring this subject up, I don't get anywhere, because it's inconceivable to her that this could happen. That's the folly of youth. Oh, that's not going to happen to me. Keep living. Okay? Just keep living. If it doesn't happen to you, it's just God just loves you. Okay? So I'm putting these things back to the rubber meets the road, because the one account where the woman fronted up the money to bury her mother, who had not saved anything, had led a very extravagant life, partied, traveled, did this, did that, and then she had a heart attack, and then boom, she's gone. That whole scenario, the family dynamics, her being the one from a large family that had to ante the money. She didn't have the resources like that, but she did. Called me, we talked about it, and I told her, ante the money, you've got credit card accessibility, you've got 401k. So she took the money out of her retirement and paid for everything. But it has caused a breach in her family, because that's money that she does not have anymore. Okay? And it put her retirement planning goals into chaos. So again, she wound up losing her home. Yes, she did. And a lot of other things over this action. Okay? And she's coming back, but she's still short all that money she put out for her mother's situation. Her mother's deceased, and I don't like to talk about the deceased, but I will tell you, having looked at all of this for, like I said, over 40 years now, the level of selfishness that would make a parent presume that their children have a responsibility to bury them. And I'm going to be totally open with you about this, because a lot of you are going to say, I don't like her attitude. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you how life occurs and when the rubber meets the road. It's not about Michelle Graves, the money lady. Her attitude is about how are you going to handle it when it sits on your doorstep. Yeah, the chicken just laid an egg and it's on your doorstep. What are you going to do? And I will say to you again, parents, handle your business. Okay, whether you're single, divorced, husband gone, dead, handle your business. And do not expect your children to step to the table. I know it sounds harsh. And you're like, but I raised them. And I will tell you, and you had them. They didn't get here in an abyss. You had them. And when you had them, you immediately were drafted into the league called Parenting League. You had them. And so it's your responsibility to do what a good parent is going to do. Hopefully you raised them right. You raised them in an environment where they were loving and loved. You did these things and you understand. But again, as I tell parents all the time, but they didn't ask to come. You made decisions that brought them. And now you have to take care of them. And if you're mature, back to the maturity again, and recognize that once you cross into parenting, your party days are over. You have to plan for them now. And you have to be responsible. You can't be, racking up debt and doing all kinds of other things. That's not reasonable and that's not good. So that's where we are with that whole conversation. And I hope I haven't offended you too badly, because the offense has been with me having to sit there and counsel people about what are their options when they're faced with this situation. Absolutely awful. I mean, just awful. What can I say? Please disregard the cell phone. It's ringing. I'm not getting up off this show and answering this phone because it's probably a spam call. And then I will have created another headache for myself with the cell phone. Isn't that something? We all have them now. And the pluses are, my goodness, are they convenient? The negatives are, oh my gosh, are they convenient? Okay, meaning anyone can conveniently call you 24 hours a day. How you like that for freedom? Okay, I'm not kidding you. Hey, well, I turned it off. No, you're not going to turn it off. The phone's going to drive you crazy. So I've laid some things back on that. Now, for those of us, and many of us are, dealing with, as a part of the rubber meets the road, our parents. Forget the grandkids and forget your kids. Let's talk about your parents and what happens as they begin to age. And we're in a cultural shift, which is they don't understand computers, Google, Instagram, Facebook. They don't understand any of that stuff. Forget it. They have a phone that's big and fat, and it's probably a flip phone. And that's as far as they want to go. Okay? You now find yourself in a situation where you have to take care of them. Now, that sounds easy, but taking care of parents responsibly, because many of us don't take care of parents at all. We just say, I'm done, I'm gone. Well, you know what? Don't take care of them. Don't call them. Don't do anything. Just be your own little ratty self, okay? Which they will tell you, she was like that anyway, or he was like that anyway. But just know what I told you on this show. Karma is real. This ain't some woo. This is, you will reap what you sow. God said that. So you got your parents, or you're trying to deal with your parents and trying to juxtapose taking care of them. And if you're still working a job, and if you're married, you still got to work your husband or your wife, and you got these responsibilities. Well, the first thing I will tell all of you is, while you are working these responsibilities, check your health care platform and see if there's any money available for you to have ongoing therapy. Did I say it? Yes, I did. Because you're going to need it. You are absolutely going to need ongoing counseling from a professional to help you get through the dynamics of taking care of your parents. Now, for some people, it's no big deal. For real, no big deal. But for many people, it's a big deal. It's not just taking care of their base needs, but it's watching their deterioration in front of your eyes. And knowing that there's nothing you can do about it because it's aging. Now, some people, and I'm telling you what I know, some people live right around the corner from their parents and won't even visit. Mostly males, that's been my experience. They just said, I can't do it. I cannot watch this happen. So they don't. Or they may call randomly, but not consistently. Well, I'm here to tell you, your parents know about that too. They do. They're watching. They want to know why. What have I done to cause this kind of behavior? And let me tell you something. While I'm talking about parents and behavior, you're looking at that house, you're looking at their real estate and their assets, and they're rewriting their will. They are rewriting their wills, male and female. They're rewriting, and guess who's not going to get a penny? I have argued with people, leave them something, and I tell you about getting old and frosty. He said, Miss Grace, we're not leaving them a dime. What? Not a dime. Period. I said, but it's going to cause family dissent. Too bad. I won't be there. See, this is what the unintended consequences bring. Okay? They do. How? How could they do this to me? Well, it's their money, it's their life, and they don't like you anymore. How about that? I can't even go into on television the scenarios I have run into with people that were counting coins before time. And yet it is as real as I'm talking to you today. So that's the downside. If parents have resources, they'll leave money to the grandkids. I'm working on a case right now where the woman is jumping over her children and leaving the money to the grandchildren who are over 18. And I'm setting up trusts so that the grandchildren will be able to have money incrementally, not at all at the same time. She's also changed the beneficiary designations on her life insurance. to her grandkids. To her grandkids. Okay, she said after burial, the rest gets split to my adorable grandkids. I told her, you do understand that this is going to cause a family ruckus. And she said, I won't be here. I don't care. Okay? So these are some of the considerations you have to know in the times that we're in today. I wouldn't have said these things 20 years ago. I wouldn't have, because I didn't have the wisdom and the understanding to talk openly with people. But I want to talk openly with you because it's important. So I hope you have gathered some thinking information, meaning I need to really think about this, and maybe I need to handle things a little better. But I want to encourage you, as always, that it starts with a frank conversation with yourself and beginning to lay the pieces in place for yourself, and if you're married, for your spouse, knowing what you get, what you don't get, trying to get good information as much as you can. I am a resource. I'm not the only resource. I'm not vain about information, okay? And proceed from there. I hope this segment has been eye-opening and enlightening for all of you. I wish you well in the days ahead. I wish you well, and that means loving unconditionally, embracing other people's failures without judging, and most of all, learn to love yourself by doing the things that say, I'm willing to take care of myself. Okay? I'm Michelle Graves, the Money Lady. Thank you so much for being a part of my world. And as always, God bless you, and you take care. Bye-bye.